Hello everyone and welcome back. We're here on Career Spotlight with TV3. My name's Asma Ahmed and I'm bringing you another guest on Career Spotlight. This week's guest is Imran. He works for the NHS. He's a senior manager for costing. Welcome, Imran.
Hello, hi there. Nice to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Lovely to have you here. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work?
Yeah, sure. So I kind of trained up in my university career actually in foreign languages. So I actually did an undergraduate degree in Arabic and Persian. But shortly after that, I actually joined Accenture as a management consultant within their technology department, and that was my kind of first kind of stab at the corporate world. And I kind of got trained up in management consulting, project management, as well as technology consulting. So these are the 2 or 3 key areas that I've kind of been working on over the last decade or two. And that's kind of led me on from technology through to coming and working for the NHS.
So is working for the NHS something you always wanted to do?
I mean, when I actually worked for Accenture, the very first client I worked for was the NHS. So there was a program back in 2004 called the NP-FIT program, the National Program for IT. So that's where I actually started, and I really enjoyed working there.
Okay. When you say Accenture?
That's right, yeah. It's called Accenture.
Accenture. What is that?
Yeah.
What kind of organization is that? What sort of field is that?
Yeah, so I mean, Accenture is a management consulting company that is an American firm set up in America, and they've actually had kind of operations in England for the last 20 to 30 years as well. And what they do is they kind of they're primarily a technology consultancy company. So they, if you have a need to kind of with the aid of technology change a part of your business, they are usually the ones to do it. Okay. They have an expertise in technology as well as making things happen as well.
Okay. So in order to get into this type of career, what sort of study route did you take?
So the way in which I got into Accenture, they have a program where they require a certain level of UCAS points. So if you've done A levels, they require a certain kind of grade set at A levels, and then also a 2-1 from university. So, but they're quite unique in that they don't require that to be in a particular area or a particular discipline. So even though my degree was in Arabic and Persian, it was okay for me to have, join a technology company, because effectively what a lot of these companies do is they actually give you the training and the education in order to become a technology consultant on the job. So when I first started, I actually spent 6 weeks learning about project management, learning about computer programming. So I did a course in Java with Sun Microsystems. And then as part of the first 2-year program, which is called a core analyst program, they all send you to America, to Chicago, to upskill in more advanced skills as well.
Wow, that's fantastic. So this is probably quite an accessible career for somebody that might have done A levels in degrees in subjects that are totally unrelated.
Yes, totally. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I would definitely say that just because you've done a degree in a certain area and you might change your mind later on and you think that you want to kind of retrain in a different area, don't think that your degree choice has in some way kind of hindered you. A lot of companies out there, what they're looking for are what we're going to call those like transferable skills. They're looking for people that are kind of eager to learn, quick to learn, and have a really good set of personal kind of skills as well.
Okay. So what if you were somebody that was having a change of career, but you didn't have a degree, but you had lots of experience? Is that another way in?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. So, for example, where I work at now at the NHS, we very much kind of regard kind of experience as something that is very, highly regarded. So you might have a degree, but you might also have equivalent experience as well. For some job roles, a degree would be required. For other job roles, equivalent experience is also regarded as just as good in many ways.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so in terms of actual costing, if somebody was to try and understand what your daily work involved, like what does that look like?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I work in costing at the kind of England level, at the national level, and there's a big kind of drive within the NHS to ensure that there's efficient use of public resources,
Okay.
and also efficient use can also kind of lead on to better patient outcomes as well. So, what I kind of spend my day doing is kind of creating benchmarking solutions so that hospitals can look at all the data that they've submitted over the last year, and then they
Mhm.
can compare themselves with other hospitals in a similar kind of situation to them to see kind of where are the cost efficiencies that they can then create at their hospital. So the often used example is a hip operation. Um, a particular provider might be spending, say, £5,000 per hip operation, and another provider down the road is spending like £1,000 less than that. But also, and critically, the patient care is better. So I think the key thing that I tend to do is create these benchmarking solutions. So we can talk a little bit about that, but
Yeah.
effectively using lots of different technology skills to then create the data that they have given us over the last year, and turning that into like an online tool that they
Mhm.
can then log on into and compare themselves with other trusts.
Okay, okay. And with your work, is it something that you can work sort of remotely, or is it something is always office based? Like, what kind of sort of what like, so the kind of climate that we're experiencing at the moment. So your work, is it on site or is it off site?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, that's a really good question. Obviously, prior to the pandemic, the majority of us were going into the office. There was also quite a flexible kind of environment at the NHS where people were working home from for about a day or two a week if you
Hmm.
wanted to. But since the pandemic, so since March, we've been working from home kind of all the time, and you can go into the office if you want to, and there are
Yeah.
some roles that require kind of you being in the office. But kind of costing itself, because we can do everything via the net. You know, we use Teams a lot. We use a lot of kind of collaborative tools like that, like video conferencing, and that is actually, it's sufficient. And we've found that actually our work hasn't been hindered. In fact, we have been
Hmm.
able to kind of by and large kind of deliver, as expected.
Yeah, yeah. So if somebody looking at this career now, so the COVID situation wouldn't disadvantage somebody. Is that what you're saying? That even you
Yeah,
can
that's
still
right. Exactly. Yeah.
you
Yeah,
can
that's
still
right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, for us, that wouldn't hinder us. That wouldn't hinder anybody at all. In fact, like, if you look at the area I work in, it's a lot of it is to do with data, like big data. So,
Right.
I mean, costing is has changed so much in the last 20 years. So now at the moment, we're dealing with like billions of rows of data.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that requires a separate skill set. It requires a lot of database skills, a lot of technical kind of knowledge. And so actually anyone with those kind of skills,
Hmm.
they can actually, they'll be really good. Like they'll be able to kind of get opportunities in lots of different areas, not just the NHS, because data day on day is growing at such an exponential rate. So the
Yeah.
ability to mine that data to create a story from that data is actually what's really required, and that's what the NHS needs as well.
Okay. Okay. So if somebody was to thinking of a change of career into this kind of environment, what would your advice be in terms of what kind of skills they should be developing? What should they be working on?
Yeah, okay, yeah, again, a really good question. I think that I mean, I'm also currently doing a master's in data science with a
Hmm.
company called Simply Learn. Again, I would highly recommend that. They're very cost-effective courses, again, entirely delivered online,
Hmm.
but you get the ability to have certification from companies such as IBM, the very well-regarded kind of partners of Simply Learn, and
Hmm.
I think that even if you haven't got a background in data science, if you did a course like that in data science,
Hmm.
you're able to then really upskill yourself. We're talking specifically about tools such as learning R Studio, SQL, Tableau, and then even tools like artificial intelligence, which are also provided by Simply Learn. So if you had a kind of a basic understanding of how these tools work, you
Hmm.
would really be able to, I think, accelerate your career and enter this kind of area.
So you've mentioned you're actually doing courses. You're doing a master's in this. So even with being in a senior managerial position, so you're finding it very useful in terms of developing your own skill set further.
Yes, that's right. Yes, because I guess like the NHS is changing all the time as well. As we are kind of receiving new data, we need to skills and tools to be able to kind of understand how that data is all interlinked, and then to how we can better use that data as well. So I think we're really kind of as an organization pushing for kind of increased understanding of how data works better. And I think in that regard, like data science as a skill set is really, really well regarded.
So if somebody was to look for work in these areas, where would they be looking? Like what are the best places for people to try and find the job vacancies?
Yeah, so I mean, for example, like there's a really good website called NHS Jobs. NHS Jobs is kind of like the central platform for all NHS kind of jobs. Kind of, I think there's over 1 million people that work for the NHS in the United Kingdom. So a massive kind of employer in the UK. And NHS Jobs is that kind of their central site. Specifically where I work for NHS England and Improvement. We've got our own separate micro job site, and that's available on NHS England. .nhs.uk. So yeah, I would say kind of like look at these two sites to start off with, but NHS Jobs is the one that's like the first place to look, and it's got a really good kind of keyword search in there. So if you wanted to put in things like analyst or data scientist or data then or information analyst or information officer, these are all kind of roles that kind of involve the use of understanding of data. And there'll be loads of jobs on there, even wherever people are kind of listening in from and watching in from, like from north of England right down to the south.
Okay, great. Okay, there's really useful things coming up. We're just going to enter the break. Then after the break, we'll be back and we'll carry on with the discussion.
ইংল্যান্ডে আমরা চাইলেও অনেক কিছু করতে পারি না, অনেক ঝামেলা। হায় রে হায়, লন্ডনের এই জীবনে ঝামেলার কোনো শেষ নাই। আমি লাল, আমার ইমিগ্রেশন, ঘর, ব্যবসা সবকিছুর ঝামেলার সমাধানে সবসময় পাশে আছে তাজ সলিসিটার।
তাজ সলিসিটার্স, বিলিভ ইন সার্ভিস।
I help my plants to grow. My performance demands competence. Photography is my passion. Accountancy is my profession. We, Mahbub & Co, a team of dedicated professionals.
Mahbub & Co Accountants.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Just a reminder that we are here with Imran, who works for the NHS as a senior manager in costing. Welcome back, Imran.
Thank you.
Okay, so before the break, we were talking about how to enter the career, and you were giving us some great tips in terms of how to upskill and the kind of courses to engage with. What I want to focus on a little bit here is the fact that people apply for jobs. Sometimes that's the easier part, but it's about how they prepare. I mean, can you give any advice just in terms of how somebody might prepare for the interview? What kind of skills they might need to sort of think about in terms of being successful for this?
Yeah, sure. I think with a lot of companies now, what we're are doing when we're interviewing, we're looking at two different types of things. So most interviews are split into I would say technical skills and then softer skills. So I would say that everyone should have a few examples of the softer skills. So, for example, this is a time when they have communicated efficiently, a time when they have resolved a problem. So, what we tend to ask in interviews are things like, tell us a time where you had a problem, either with your manager or with a client, and then tell us how you resolved that. Tell us about how you had an effective communication with somebody at work. So those type of skills, I would say, are kind of usually very highly regarded in most jobs. And so I would say that for people the best way to prepare for those is to think of some examples in the professional environment where they can give some examples of that. And secondly, I would talk about, I would ask them to look at some of the technical aspects of that job. Sometimes it's not necessarily just technical, but it's about subject matter. So, for example, like how can they use the experience that they have had previously, even if it's not directly related, and shed some light on that particular area. So, for example, in costing, if you're looking at more of a technology role within costing, give some examples where you've used SQL or Excel to investigate a problem and analyze a problem. So it's always best when you're interviewing to give concrete examples. If you give an example where you would say something like, I can communicate effectively, that's not going to be as good as an example where I had a presentation that I had to deliver in front of 30 people. I prepared for it in this way, and it went down well. So I think if you can give more concrete examples, that would be really good.
Great. So what other aspects will there be questions on? So somebody was successful with it to get into an interview. So you've talked about one aspect. What other things might come up in an interview?
Things like values are always something that will come up as well. So there will be like a value-based question, and that's quite an important kind of that's quite an important thing for the NHS, but again, other employers as well. So they might ask about your values, how your values are in line with their organization, and they might pick on a particular thing, such as diversity. They might say, how would you find it working with somebody who doesn't share the same outlook as yours? Now, it's quite a theoretical question, but again, how you deal with that and how you kind of answer that question will say a lot about your own value base, as it were. And I think that's another area I would say is very important nowadays to really kind of prepare for.
So you mentioned diversity, because I know that when I'm interviewing people for where I work, and sometimes I have to be on the panel for interviews, and I do find that a lot of candidates get stumped with the diversity question. So can you give us some examples in terms of what kind of responses you would be looking for?
Yeah, so I think, again, it's really good to kind of talk about this because there's not necessarily there's no right or wrong answer, but I think you can answer it in a way which kind of helps people understand who you are as a human being. Because I think at the end of the day, it's very important to recognize that the people that are interviewing you, 2 or 3 people, they're human beings. They're just like you, got family, kids, work pressures. And in a sense, what you're trying to do in the interview is give them some sense of your capabilities, but also some sense of your personality and who you are as a person. And I think this question is a good example, or a good way of giving who you are and talking about your personality. So I would say pick an example of a person that has had maybe very different views from yourself. It could be religious, it could be cultural, it could be about even gender equality, and how you, I guess, kind of maybe appreciate another perspective, a different perspective, and where you stand on that matter, and where you can challenge if that opposing view is kind of forced on you, but recognizing fully that everyone is entitled to their own opinion. So you kind of need to give it, I guess, a fair bit of nuance. And I would say that if you haven't got an example where that has actually happened to you in work, I would say come up with a hypothetical scenario and say, this is how I would deal with X, Y, Z. Because you might not have experienced that, but just say, look, this is what I think I would do in this given scenario.
Yeah. Okay. So with the actual interview, so you talked a little bit about the questions. Can you talk about the kind of structure of interviews? Is it all questions based, or are there activities, and how long might an interview last?
So the interviews where we are roughly last about 45 minutes. And there tend to be kind of mainly questions, but we are now increasingly moving towards a kind of presentation model as well, where we would give about maybe 5 minutes for a presentation right at the beginning of the interview. And that might be on a pre-prepared topic that we would have given a day or two in advance. That's not universal, but I think there's an increasing kind of increasing push towards that, especially as the number of candidates are increasing. One of the things that I've personally found is that the number of candidates have increased recently, and the way to differentiate yourselves from other kind of individuals is through something such as a presentation, which really allows someone to put a lot of thought into a topic that we've given, and then they then deliver that presentation. And again, in that regard, presentation skills are quite important.
Yeah.
No matter what job you're in, you are going to have to communicate what you've done to somebody else as a bare minimum. So the way you present information and present facts is going to be quite critical to that. So and then rarely there might be a kind of a written test. Obviously that's quite rare.
Okay. So with the presentations and just the interview processes, with us being obviously a lot of us are remote, and I know that in other organizations a lot of the interviewing is being done remotely. So would these interviews also be remote, and would they still follow the same structure?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So all the interviews I've done recently have been remote, and it would be, we use Microsoft Teams. They would just take place over Microsoft Teams. We would have an allotted slot. Again, it's slightly, I would say, less formal as it has been in the past, where you meet in person. But actually, it's surprising that you still get that level of nervousness in a candidate, over Teams as well. So I think that's still there.
Okay. You mentioned that you've conducted some interviews recently. So can you tell us what sort of job roles have come up? Because I know yours is in costing, but I mean, sometimes we think of the NHS and we don't realize that there are so many different functions and so many variety of jobs that you can actually apply for. Can you give us an example of some of the jobs that you have actually interviewed for?
Yeah, so I mean, I recently interviewed for jobs as costing analysts. So broadly still within the costing sphere. So where we were recruiting for analytical capabilities within the team. But if you look at kind of the NHS England kind of jobs website, you'll have kind of careers on there, ranging from leading kind of ICSs, so integrated care systems, through to, I think there's a job out there on kind of head of strategy for artificial intelligence, for an organization called NHSX, which is a kind of a separate technology wing of the NHS. So there's many different kind of roles, everything from obviously patient care, right through to kind of a lot of the support administrative functions, where it could be the finance directorate, it could be operational efficiency directorate. So there's lots of different kind of roles within the NHS that are there designed to kind of help help support the ecosystems of the healthcare environment.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so one of the things that I try to bring out on the actual on the career spotlight is just also the insights that actually you don't just have to have one career, and you can actually be involved in lots of other things at the same time. Because I know that with you, that you're also involved in lots of other projects. So you've got your job with the NHS, but I know that you're also a writer and that you've also published some books. So would you like to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I mean, that's something I'm quite passionate about. I kind of really enjoy books, and also kind of, I guess I've gone into kind of publishing kind of books a couple of years ago now, and it's always been a kind of little side project that I work on. And yes, I mean, I think there's a book recently that I kind of worked on, and it was actually about Ramadan. So it was about kind of a child kind of experiencing Ramadan for the first time, and it's called Musa Masters Ramadan. and my son's name is Musa actually. So so I think it was a kind of labor of love really in the way that I kind of put that together. So I wrote the book, and I got an illustrator from Indonesia, designed the cover, and now it's available on Amazon. And so I mean, I quite enjoy kind of putting the whole kind of pieces together of the puzzle, as it were, and then I like seeing the kind of the finished product launched, as it were.
That's amazing. So if somebody was thinking about writing, because you've managed to do that with the full-time job, and also I know you're a family man. So how did you manage to fit that in?
I mean, I think it's interesting. I mean, I guess there's a whole thing I can talk about when it comes to kind of book publishing, but a lot of these things can be done with limited time, especially if you outsource some of the kind of key areas. So, for example, editing of the book. So for a children's book, illustrations are quite critical. So, I got an illustrator from Indonesia. So I think some of the work involved is in finding some of these people. But actually, once you've got the individuals, it can come together quite quickly. I designed the book cover, for example, on Canva, and launching it onto Amazon is something I kind of learned over years. But so that process itself only takes a couple of hours.
Yeah.
So actually, the key kind of thing that takes time in the evenings is maybe drafting an outline of the book, drafting the chapters, and then writing of the book. But again, you could do that in a couple of months as well, just even part time, because these books are, they're not massively long. They're about 50, 60 pages. So you could do that, especially with children's book. It's an area where books tend not to be that long anyway. So it's a good place to start. And also I found the illustrator via Fiverr.
Okay.
Fiverr.com. Yeah. So I mean, you're not paying Fiverr, £5 to pay for the illustrators. Like you may be paying maybe something like £50 or £60. But once you can split down the kind of job of publishing a book into these 5 or 6 different components, you can see actually it's more manageable than you think, and actually within 3 months you've got a book that's launched.
Okay, so how do you? I know you kind of brush past quickly in terms of writing and getting the idea and putting that together. How do you do that with a full-time job? How do you fit that in, and how do you come up with an idea?
I think it's like if it's something that you really enjoy, then it's the kind of thing that you think I turn into a hobby. So for me, it's like, okay, some people, they might play golf. For me, I would just sit there with a little notepad, in an evening whilst watching a film, and I'll just think, okay, well, hold on, how does this story evolve? And I think it'll just be an idea that'll be percolating in my head for a few minutes, and then eventually I will start with the outline, do the chapter plans, and then write the text, for those chapters. Yeah. So I think, in a sense, it sounds like making it sound easier than it is, but I think that I would say an hour a day over 3 months you can do it.
Brilliant. That's amazing. Okay, well, we're coming to the end of the show. Imran, thank you so much for giving us your time and sharing some real insights into the career in NHS, and also sharing, I know that's something personal to you about the book writing, but I just think it's so useful for people to see that actually it's not just one career, and actually even a hobby can become something quite amazing. So we will be back in 2 weeks with another guest sharing lots and lots of tips about another career. Thank you, and thank you to TV3, and thank you for everyone for giving us your time.
Darul Hadith Latifia, an Islamic secondary school in East London.
أدرس في دار الحديث اللطيفية. أحب مدرستي لأني أتعلم.
Not only do we have the Islamic sciences, but we are also able to offer the national curriculum such as maths, English and science.
Rated good by Ofsted with outstanding behavior and attitudes, personal development and leadership and management.
The teachers at our school are very hardworking and caring, and there's always a positive, safe and secure atmosphere in and around our school.
Admissions are now ongoing. Secure a place today. Visit us at 1 Cornwall Avenue, London, E2.
Are you a first-time property buyer? Are you a homeowner looking to raise funds from your property? Are you looking for better mortgage deals? Look no further. Binaco Financial Services is the answer. From residential mortgage to commercial mortgage, Islamic mortgage, or limited company mortgage, we provide mortgage services that best suit your needs. Let us help you to find the right mortgage for you. Call us today on 0208-050-2478 for a better future awaits you. Binaco Financial Services Limited is directly authorized and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority.